welcome to another recap of my workbench, of what I did today. Today's a pretty successful day. The goal was to basically get tcell to support SSH. Tcell, if you're not familiar, is a Go library that basically gives you primitives for building UIs in the terminal, right? So basically uses term info and does a lot of tricks to basically let you do, dialogues and all kinds of components and even mouse input. It's really great, but the problem with most of these libraries is that they're always hard-coded to standard in and standard out, which means that you can't use them with SSH. And so that's how I want to use them most of the time, because I do a lot of SSH stuff, and so it was kind of nice to finally make some progress here. And if we were to look in here, basically I went into this thinking like, oh, it looks like they have, this screen interface. This isn't the interface, but this is the implementation. They have a screen interface, and so I could implement another version of that does SSH. The problem is screen actually does a ton of stuff that's going to be the same regardless, because it's all basically like, handling input and drawing stuff in a certain way, and all these things. So it's like, oh, I don't want to re-implement that, and that would of course be be silly for a PR and would be really annoying to have as a fork. So I was trying to figure out clever ways to not do that, and it seemed like, well, the only way, because that's the only real interface or driver that they expose. And of course I was looking at these, these are basically what map to usually standard in and standard out. In this case they do map to dev tty, and so you think, oh, well, maybe I can, replace those somehow. And I poked around and I wanted to make sure nobody else was, or see if anybody else, wanted this or whatever. And so this was basically, somebody else noticed that and kind of had the same idea, which was replace those in and out file pointers to, IO readers and writers, right? And they basically wanted to do the same thing specifically for using it with SSH. So it's not so much that they really want any reader and writer, because like, how many other uses are there for this sort of thing other than SSH? So ultimately I hope this solves everybody's problem, so we don't actually need to do this, and because the ultimate solution was not actually using that. So reading this, blah 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 blah, a lot of complex stuff. Shazao chimed in, which I was kind of surprised to see, but it makes sense. He's been doing a lot of SSH stuff and collaborations with me. And basically this one went on for a while and just kind of, died. Nobody's really pushing it, right? So I came in and kind of suggested what I was thinking, which was, okay, well, maybe if we, instead of replacing them with IO writers, we not replace them, but use a pipe, because then you wouldn't have to change anything that depends on those files and any of the semantics around working with a file descriptor, because that would all work with a pipe, and then you would just take the other end of the pipe and have SSH, join its session into the pipe, and in theory it'd work. But of course, there's actually more to it than a pipe. It's actually a terminal, and in this case, this is kind of what pseudo terminals are for. And so then, because I had worked with pseudo terminals a lot, and use this library by Keith. Luckily, it has a version that lets you just open what do you call it? It's a, it never takes me to the right one. It's a PP, let's see, here it is, PTMX. a pseudo terminal master slave. So it's basically like a pipe pair, except it's a pseudo terminal. And so that's what PTY actually uses to let you run sub-processes in a terminal. So basically, I used that and found out the exact places I needed to kind of hook into. Oh, and it looks like I just got a response here. So I'll read that in a minute. Basically, I tried to find something that has minimal changes. So basically, created an interface for the things that I needed to hook into or change, depending on whether it's SSH or local. Have that driver have a default driver that has like their default stuff, and then have a method called setDriver, which you have to do a type assertion to with an interface on the other end to be able to set that, because this is on the tscreen implementation. It's not part of the public screen interface, which is fine. This is kind of not the normal use case for the library, so it makes sense. And then tscreen actually has a bunch of different platform implementations, but it turns out all the parts that I need to change are all the same. So we actually kind of reduce some of the duplication across these platforms by introducing this this driver, and yeah, just some minimal things, and that's it. So it's like a pretty simple change, and the end result. Let's see. This is, you can run my little Go server. And then connect to SSH, right? And it's got resizes. Those R's are, there's it's drawing too many R's, so we can hit C to clear. We can hit escape to exit, and then we can connect again and do it all over again. So this is the first time I've seen a good library like this work over SSH. And it wasn't that hard. I going into it, I kind of thought it was going to be harder than I thought, and seeing that issue that had been around for so long, I was like, oh, like this is going to be difficult because like this has been around for a while, and I just kind of figured it out and did it in a couple of hours, so that was cool. Anyway, big success today. So now we can do terminal UIs with SSH, which is really cool. I should actually let a lot of people know about this because it's really great. Anyway, that's it for today. We'll see about using this on Thursday, and I'll do a recap video then. So anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to continue to follow along.